Welcome, friends, to another video of the Yoga Sutras. Thank you for tuning in, for being here. And I present this beautiful scripture because for me, in my opinion, it is the most undervalued scripture that there is. It is really a scripture that talks about self-realization and not just the pathway to it, but also the life that emanates then from this recognition of yourself as this vaster essence. What this then implies, how life is like, what it means to actually be unified. Because what we're talking about in this book is, of course, the process of you reconnecting to your eternal nature, to something in you that is changeless, to consciousness, to the divine essence that you are. And you are recognizing yourself on that level. So you're not anymore recognizing yourself only as this person or this soul that adds on to itself usually all the time, but you're recognizing yourself on the level of consciousness. And the level of consciousness, this is like a process, right? You're reconnecting to that awareness, to that level of yourself. And you're discovering yourself first as unified with, and then as unified, as the truth of union, the truth of oneness. And this is described in this book in an extent that isn't known to most people, simply because what he's talking about is so subtle, and the understanding and the level of recognition and the level of immediate experience of union or oneness that is depicted in this book is often completely lost. And that's why I'm so happy to talk about it. And I hope that it really speaks to you, because all what we're talking about nowadays, in terms of abiding and in terms of different meditation techniques, witnessing, placing your awareness on awareness, all these different methods are all depicted already 2000 years ago in this book. So it is, and nowadays there is a huge surge of non-duality, right? Of non-dual teachings, and because they present the truth, the truth that is deeper than your opinions or what thoughts are going on in your mind, the circumstances that you have. It speaks about the self, the true self, what you are eternally, and how to discover this, not just as something you want to discover, but also so that this actually streams into your life. This is then who you are. It is what you are, and it is then allowed to stream into life as you are. And so this is really significant. So this sutta I'm talking about is 117, and he talks about the process of recognition, the process of self-recognition. It can also be done with an outside object, how that process is like, but what he actually refers to all the time is really the recognition of this innermost sense of what you are, this innermost, steady, unchanging, unflinching, peaceful, loving, blissful, happy sense of being that lies at the core of all of us. And so the first step that he mentions is vitarka, which is to have an understanding of the self. What is your true self, actually? And this is also where usually the interest starts for people, is to have the knowledge or the understanding what is your true self, and that there is a difference between the personal sphere, the relative sphere, and this deeper self. And that this deeper self is nothing that appears. It means it's not your thoughts, it's not your circumstances, it's not the names you have, it's not your age, it's not your biography, it's nothing like that. It is not a relative, conceptual kind of knowledge. And so the first stage, you could say, in your recognition of yourself, of your true self, is this understanding. What is actually myself? So you might have not realized yourself as that, but you might know, hey, there is a deeper sense of myself. And you come into touch with this deeper sense all the time. It is always already here and always already actually also tangible for you. It is that part of yourself that is always watching. It is the part of yourself that is more knowledgeable. It is the part of yourself that actually directs life, that is this life. And you might also know that whatever is happening in your life, whatever you feel like, however good or bad you feel at a certain time, whatever emotions you're having, whatever positive outlook or negative outlook on the world you're having, you know this is not essentially you. There's a deeper sense of self that is unchanging and that is not defined and that doesn't have this subjective stance that comes from localizing yourself as a point inside of the space of awareness. That's then what is happening the moment you take on a stance. You're localizing yourself in a way. And so this is the unlocalized, infinite essence that we all share, your beingness. And so the first stage is to actually have this kind of gross understanding. What am I looking for? What is this self I'm looking for? And also maybe an understanding, am I actually looking for this? Or am I looking somewhere else for this? Am I still looking externally? Am I still looking into different modalities that give me an experience of this, hopefully? Knowing, starting to discriminate, this is all not the self. The moment something changes, like you have an experience of your unlimited essence, and then it is changing, The moment you feel peaceful and it is changing, the moment you feel joyful, it is changing, you know this is not it. So there has to come also maturity in the process of this gross understanding. Whatever I experience, whatever I feel, whatever I spiritually experience, it is not yet this unlimited essence of self. It's not yet it. And this understanding, even though this is all conceptual and it is all mental, it is usually what catapults people on this journey, on this non-dual journey, on the journey of actually finding out what they are, finding out the truth of who you are, the truth of the self. And then the second stage is called vichara. It means a more refined and subtle understanding of what is the self. And this can only come to you when you have found the space of I am. Like to really know the nothingness, like the reduced sense of self that doesn't take on anything. And you can find this space of I am, this purity of simply knowing that you exist by starting to not take on whatever the mind suggests. It means to really go into meditation as a means of witnessing, just simply witnessing what comes and goes. And you can do this as I talk now. So you have an experience of this. So you're just abiding. That's what it's meant. You're just staying as it is. You're just remaining empty. You're remaining blank. And whatever thoughts are coming up, you don't take them on as an identity. You don't go down the mind stream. You don't identify with that. And when you do this, you can start to actually turn your attention towards this witnessing agent that you are, this awareness. And you can try to define this awareness. You can try to define what remains awake and alert and is not needing existentially, essentially, to take on these mind streams, to take on these thoughts. And when you start having the immediate experience of that awareness, then you start having a subtle understanding of consciousness, of what you are, of what exists devoid or prior to all thoughts, all emotions, even all sensations, all your judgments, whatever the person is, the perceptions of the person, the ideas, but even the senses, the sense perceptions, whatever goes on, whatever you are sensing, there is something prior, doesn't need to take this on. When you can remain empty and just not take on any thoughts, then you come into a more subtle understanding. And you can do this right now, just for a couple minutes. Don't take on any suggestions of the mind. If you have never done this before, you come for the first time probably in your life into direct contact with your mind and with the power of the momentum of the mind to take you into your presumed identity. And what you have is not any of these identities. And so you're actually allowing yourself to remove yourself from this conditioning that usually goes on, that takes you into these different mind streams, that wants you to identify with any of these kind of thoughts. And when you remain as the stillness and you learn to not take on, you learn to witness, you stay out of it, you remain empty. And when this becomes more natural to you, to remain empty, then what arises from that is an intense form of relief and just a contentment that isn't bound to any of the thoughts anymore. It isn't a contentment that we usually feel, like a contentment because we achieved something or because we got something. It is a contentment that is you. That's the peace that is you, the love that is you, the primordial love, the primordial peace, the causeless dimension of self. And that's the third stage he mentions. That's what often is called the bliss. The bliss, you're entering bliss. When people usually imagine bliss, they imagine this ecstatic kind of bliss that is often associated with very divine kind of you do some rituals or religious rituals or something like this that opens in you this type of bliss, and then you feel blissful also in this kind of mood that is created, like the spiritual mood of bliss. But that's not the bliss of the self. The bliss of the self stands a little bit in contrast to thoughts, contrast to emotions, contrast to sensations. It is it is the dimension of yourself that has no lack and that is fulfilled by itself. It is fulfilled by itself because it is complete without anything. And in the truest sense of the word, it is complete without needing anything because it is already whole. That is your own holiness. That is your own wholesomeness. That is your completeness. And there is this bliss and this contentment that comes from staying with that comes from remaining outside of all of these kind of appearances, all of these thoughts, all of what is going on, all of it. It is the dimension that exists before that, before these thoughts arise. It is a vaster dimension of self, and it is you. You are content. You are at peace. You are already fulfilled. and to come into contact with that yourself through this kind of practice is so precious, because then what is done can be coming out of that, can be coming out of being already fulfilled, can be coming out of being happy, can be coming out of being at peace, and isn't then always coming from this sense of lack that is actually also a deep seeking impulse that we hope from an outside object to fill this kind of lack, until we understand, okay, it's not done like this. We have to turn towards the self. We have to find that inside of ourselves, because we are that. So we have to go into what is before. And then the last stage, when you know, when you have found this peace, when you have found your contentment, when you have found the dimension that is complete, and you can rest in that. You have learned to rest in that. You have learned to abide as that. The last stage he mentions in the sutra is that then you can realize the self. And what then happens is, after feeling this bliss, this contentment, after having the experience of what is already fulfilled, you can turn your gaze, literally, you can turn your attention towards this awareness, towards consciousness, towards the knowing, towards what is aware. And you can realize this as your eternal nature, as your primary identity, as that what you will always be, before form, before matter, before thoughts, before perceptions that make up your idea of reality, your sense of self. It is the last stage in which you can recognize yourself as apart from the mind, as not the mind, as not whatever is going on, as not any appearance, but as that. It is your attention turns towards itself. Awareness turns, becomes aware of itself. Consciousness becomes conscious of itself. This is the goal, the deepest goal your soul has. Everything else in this life is always an external search for what you already are. And this external search has a distinct flavor for you. You are searching for the love that you are. You're searching for the truth that you are. You're searching for the reality that you are. You're searching for the peace that you are. You're searching for the light that you are. And it is always that we will be trying very, very strongly with all these outer means or relationships, communities, people, all these different things. We're trying to add this onto us so that we find this, until we are ready to look inside and to go onto this path of really witnessing the mind, of going before the mind, going before form. This is actually meant when we are talking about going inside. It is not inside your head, inside your thoughts, what you're thinking, however good or bad you feel about your practice. These are all the games of the mind. Whatever the person is actually still wired around. It is deeper than this. It is you before this. This is meant by going inside. And these are the different stages. They're still true today. They're still practicable. They're still your most direct path to understanding what you are, to your inner realization of this beautiful, eternal self that you already are. Namaste.